welcome to the Academic Web3 Conference.
And there, it's working. Hello.
Hi, Dr. Alexander.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm very excited. Just got out of VR just a bit ago with Dr. Morris. I was learning from her, and we were spending time there. Now, I understand that Dr. Morris needs to raise her hand to be brought into the main session here. And I am very honored to be here today with her because she is a true trailblazer in education in the metaverse. She was a chemistry professor at Morehouse College, which was one of the first, perhaps the first metaversity, and began teaching courses in VR there, and is now the director of the Metaversity project, is leading the initiative there at Morehouse, and is also doing data collection on education in the metaverse, as well as being very generous with her time in teaching others. The session that I came from earlier today was open office hours with Dr. Mom, which is one of the names by which she is known. And that Dr. Mom in this case stands for Molder of Minds. So she has molded the minds not only of many of her own students, but also for those of us who are interested in trying to follow in her footsteps in education in the metaverse. I myself, pardon?
I was just going to say, you're the founder of an XRWomen group. And so that's really important for other people that are in different communities to understand that there is already these resources out there. Sorry to interrupt. Please continue.
No. Okay, well, while we're waiting for Dr. Morris, I'll tell you a little bit about XRWomen. I am one of the co-founders. I founded it along with Julie Smithson, Sophia Mashasha, and Sarah Klein back in November of 2020. And we wanted to have an opportunity for more women to speak about their work and to showcase their talents, because we found that there were many panels and events where the speakers were primarily men. And so we formed this community. We meet every week in the Immersive Learning Research Network virtual campus on the Verbella platform. And we've been doing so since then, since November of 2020. And I'm thrilled to announce that we will celebrate our 2-year anniversary and our 100th event coming up in November with a live in-person event at Zero Space Studios, a full service production studio, XR production studio in Brooklyn, New York. So 100 events is quite an accomplishment, and we've had many amazing women present at our weekly events. We learn from one another, we share, we form community, we develop collaborations there. Our website is xrwomen.com, and you can find information there on how to download the iLearn platform, the Immersive Learning Research Network Verbella platform. And you can join us there every Wednesday. Sometimes we take field trips into other virtual worlds, as we did with the AltSpace world for Juliana Lowe's Awaken the Giants experience, which is an incredible spatial narrative that she created and is now available in AltSpace VR and in the Engage platform. We are excited about everything that we've accomplished there, and we want to learn more from other women who are working in this space. And here is Dr. Morris. Wonderful.
Welcome. I have provided introductions, but you guys are so overly qualified about education in the metaverse. I am going to step back and listen to both of you because you're a plethora of knowledge. So Thank you so much for both of you being here. I'm super grateful and excited.
Thank you. Thank you for having both of us.
Yes, very grateful to you, Bella. Well, Dr. Morris, yes. So I was just talking about you and your many accomplishments, although I'm sure I just barely scratched the surface. We met, I think it was only just in person, only just a year ago. I knew who you were, and we met at the Augmented World Expo conference where XRWomen had a party, and you came. And that was so wonderful, but somehow it seems like it was much longer ago than just a year. So much has happened since then. Yeah.
Absolutely. So good afternoon, everyone. I am going to just start our presentation, I guess. I know that I could introduce myself, but I will let my avatar self introduce myself. And then we'll talk a little bit about education in the metaverse. I'm going to share. I hope that everyone can hear the sound. Can you see the presentation, Karen?
I can see it, yes.
All right, here we go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Academic Web3 NFT Conference. My name is Dr. Messina Morris, and I am joined by Dr. Karen Alexander. We are on the digital twin replica of Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, but in the metaverse. And we bring you greetings on this day. Today, we're going to talk about education in the metaverse. Karen? Really look forward to having this conversation. Dr. Morris is a true trailblazer and pioneer in this space on teaching in the metaverse and leading metaversity projects. So she will have a lot of wisdom to share. I have a little bit myself, and we're looking forward to talking to you all and engaging you in conversation and finding ways to perhaps build some bridges between Web3 and XR and the metaverse. We look forward to talking to you. So you're about to see us on your real screens. See you. See you soon.
So Karen and I recorded that earlier in our virtual reality headsets on the digital twin campus of Morehouse College. And a lot of this is what I call opportunistic reality, an opportunity to give people, professionals, students, people of all ages, a different type of opportunity through XR education. So there are a couple of acronyms or things that we say, we just use this jargon, and I wanted to explain a little bit of it. So XR, when we talk about XR, we're talking about extended reality. AR is augmented reality. That means that we are using some type of simulation or filter to place over the real world. Usually you can do that from your mobile phone. And then VR is virtual reality. So we use actual head-mounted displays that can be tethered or untethered in order to access a completely digitally simulated world and do many different things. And it can be asynchronous. That means that you're going in by yourself and working in a particular environment, or you can be in a synchronous environment with others, like how Karen and myself were together. The metaverse is simply an embodiment of the internet, right? So people talk about the metaverse as something that is new, but really it has been a term that was coined back in the early 90s, and people have been using it very loosely to describe situations like this, like what you see in the Matrix or Tron, or even surrogates. So there are different things, but it doesn't have to exist in any dystopian society. So that's one thing that we want to bring out. And then metaversity is just a combination of the metaverse plus a university or an institution of higher learning. And so Morehouse College is the first metaversity to exist. And now we have 9 other institutions that have come on to have digital twins of their campuses created in classroom spaces where their students can come and be educated about whatever the subject matter is, and they can actually engage in the content as their avatar presence in real time, using three-dimensional assets. And then OR is what I call opportunistic reality, because XR plus education has given me a different type of opportunity, but also my students and other people that I encounter as I continue to educate them about the opportunities that lie in the metaverse. And really, it allows you to chart your own pathway to success, as it is a $1.5 trillion industry, according to PricewaterhouseCoopers in their 2019 report. So I'm going to stop sharing there, and we're going to just talk about some different things that we have discovered by being in the educational space in the metaverse.
Yes,
Karen?
that's right. So we have both participated in different ways in what is called the Metaversity Project, which is headed up by an organization called Victory XR. Victory XR has been involved in delivering education, XR education, in large part through the Engage platform, the Engage virtual platform. And the Metaversity Project is being run by Victory XR with the support of Meta. And there were 10 higher educational institutions that participated in this project. But this was after it launched. It actually started with Morehouse College prior to that. And Morehouse College had a digital twin of their campus built, and that's the one where you saw us speaking from. And that was the pilot, the proof of concept. Dr. Morris was involved in that initiative and really sort of led the way. And I'll ask her to say a little bit more about that in a moment, but just to say that the project expanded out from there to these 10 additional institutions that now have digital twin campuses and are teaching classes in VR. Dr. Morris, do you want to say a little bit about your experience just at the very beginning and getting started with your Metaversity and teaching classes there? What was that like? What did it involve?
It involved a lot of creativity and a lot of capacity to collaborate with your other colleagues. So it was not just me. It was 3 other professors at Morehouse College. So myself in chemistry, Dr. Ithil Vereen in biology, Dr. Ovell Hamilton in history, and Dr. Tanya Clark in English. We all embarked on this 60-day build the rocket while it's going to space initiative to create engaging classrooms right in the middle of the pandemic. So it was spring of 2021 when we embarked on this, and we started teaching full classes and making virtual reality the classroom. So all of our students were loaned out a MetaQuest 2 headset at the beginning of the semester, and we had class every class period that we needed to in these headsets. So what does that really mean? That means that the content was actually curated by us. So we have autonomy as college professors over our content. We abide by the rules and the standards of our disciplines. And so the student learning outcomes were the first thing that we started with to make sure that our students were also meeting the mark in their particular areas. So the content was aligned with our actual student learning outcomes. And then we started developing content around meeting those needs of the students. And even development of summative and formative assessments were a bit different too, because you can assess students as a practical, having them actually repeat some of the steps. They can do presentations that can be recorded and then played back, and then use rubrics to assess themselves. So that was always fun. We also actually can give examinations in the headset as well. So it was something that we wanted to utilize to be able to see if our students in real time were actually understanding the content that was being given to them, and then able to reteach if need be, or have them do more types of examples while we were apart, but together in this synchronous learning environment. So we didn't have to worry about breakout rooms and not knowing what's going on in another room, having to cycle through and kind of catch up with the students. And that was like a waste of class time. I was able to put my students in groups around different spaces, cut on what we call 3D voice so they can have private conversations amongst themselves. And then when I wanted to, summon them back to me so we could have whole group discussions about the work they were doing. And it was very fluid, as if we were right in each other's presence. So it provided our students different levels of engagement with their disciplines, and they soared. So we not only saw achievement, but we saw increased engagement and student satisfaction. Students didn't drop out of their courses. It increased our attendance rates by 10 percentage points, which was a new thing because students weren't showing up to Zoom classrooms, but they would definitely get their avatars to class when it came to being in VR. And students actually performed well. So we saw 11.9% increase in student achievement. And that got us to thinking, this is something that just doesn't need to be used when we're away from one another, but let's curate content that we can do while we're also in the classroom. So now we're fully residential, have 9 courses that are being taught on the campus, but would have taught 15 by the end of this semester. And across all disciplines, so English, history, journalism, business. So we're teaching a Black entrepreneurial mindset course, multimedia and storytelling. We still have microbiology and regular biology. And we do still have some sociology courses that are coming online too. So we are doing this across the humanities as well as the STEM disciplines. So it's not particular to one particular discipline, but we are finding that content that is given to our students across all disciplines has been fruitful for their success and their willingness to stay involved in their own academic pathway.
Right. Yes. And there's so many things to follow up on what you said there. And one of them is, I like to say that Zoom is nowhere, but there are many worlds and many places in the metaverse, right?
Yes.
And so they can be places with which you feel an affinity, such as the Morehouse campus, which is very meaningful to the students there. And so having this digital replica where they can attend classes when they can't be there together in person provides that sense of place and of the history involved with the institution and of gathering there with your professors and your classmates. You were talking about the different disciplines in which you teach, and I think people often tend to go first to the sciences, and of course that's your field. But I know from hearing a wonderful presentation by your colleague, Dr. Tanya Clark, about experiencing African American literature in the metaverse, that she has done an incredible job of bringing her students to have a deeper understanding, a more visceral understanding of some of the literature that she was teaching through creating experiences that were relevant. For example, by having them visit L'Amistad, a slave ship, to help illustrate some of the literary themes and concepts. It's very powerful.
It is. The one thing that we wanted to make sure of was, for our population of students especially, we have 2,200 young Black men that matriculate through the campus of Morehouse College. So it's a small liberal arts college located in Atlanta, Georgia, and the alma mater of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Spike Lee, Raphael Warnock, but plenty of creative, very socially justice-oriented space and people. So we wanted to make sure that we adhere to the motto of Morehouse College and its mission, which is to create disciplined minds of young men who lead lives of leadership and service. We also are charged as professors to interconnect Black life, history, and culture in all of the lessons, regardless of the discipline, so that our students could see themselves emulated in their particular fields. So it was incredibly important for us to have culturally responsive spaces that our students could thrive in while being on campus. So you will see on our campus, you saw just the digital twin, but usually when we have class, there are different artifacts that we augment the space with, whether it's African art or depictions of the civil rights movement or a march that Martin Luther King participated in, or just things about life as a Black American that they need to see and that help them to be familiar. So they're in this technological environment that is really different and new, right, and cutting edge, but the warmth of the space allows them to be fully present and engaged, even more than before, because they feel like it is built for them. It is made just for them to be also able to succeed. So many times these young men enter into spaces that don't really reflect their own culture or their cultural experiences. And we wanted them to know that this type of learning is for them, that they can also be creators in this space, and that they have agency and autonomy in their learning. So it's allowed them to really take hold of what we're trying to teach them. And you're right about what Dr. Clark is doing, and then also what Dr. Hamilton is doing with his journey through the civil rights movement, and then being able to walk across the Edmund Pettus Bridge and to be able to hear the sights and sounds of that time period and understanding it. It's something about walking a mile in another person's shoes that you get to actually experience their life that brings you to a greater sense of awareness of another person's journey. That empathy and compassion that is developed is so necessary, especially as we move towards a more sustainable future and developing ways to meet challenges that are more complex in nature. We need to understand one another and be able to communicate and collaborate in spaces that are familiar and unfamiliar to us. So this was a perfect opportunity to do that for our students.
Yes, absolutely, and you're so right that is hugely important, and that goes well beyond the fact that you can do things in VR like hold a human heart in your hand and expand it and stick your head inside it, or you can have, as some of your students did, as some of the Morehouse students did, have a field trip to a fallopian tube.
Yeah.
What it looks like on the inside. So these experiences at scale that we just couldn't have otherwise, that are made possible in VR. And there's also the element of co-curricular activities that also sort of link to the space. I know that Morehouse has had a number of these. They span from the Meditation Mondays, where you promote wellness for your students, your Candle in the Dark ceremony, and your Metaversity commencement service. And those two sort of bring together the community.
Yes. So what I found was that it was wonderful to do academic courses, right? But that's not all that university or college life is all about. It's really about building a sense of community. And so I realized that we can build a very powerful community with all of our stakeholders being able to take part. So headsets, even we have 500 headsets, MetaQuest 2 headsets. And so we've had over 300 students in headsets, over 176 now, 24 professors that are currently going through professional development. But what's so exciting about it is being able to actually gift headsets to also our staff members, to students who aren't in actual courses, who want to be involved and be exposed to this technology and just want to have a different experience in college. So we've been able to give headsets out at the beginning of the semester to students, faculty, staff, and then we've had some alum also do it. We have some Morehouse online students who are our non-traditional students also join and get onto the campus for, like you said, these co-curricular events, which included our Candle in the Dark Gala, which is our largest gala that we do during our Founders Week. And so alum were able to not only experience what our students were experiencing, but also have a good time and dance with and then see what was actually happening in real time, in real life, at the actual in-person gala too. So we streamed the services in, so they were all over the world and able to experience the gala, which a lot of them love, but hadn't been able to travel back to. Same thing goes for our Meditation Mondays. Our students were, we have to just think about what university life is for our young people now. They came back during a COVID season, and we're primarily residential campus, which most campuses are, but they just weren't able to gather the way that they used to, right? So we provided a space where they could gather, and not just gather, but talk about mental health, talk about how they were feeling, how they were experiencing the world, what changed for them, and how that made them feel. And they were able to express themselves. So we did a meditation movement where they wrote, just meditated using the 3D pen, which allows them to write in all 3 dimensions and just express how they felt. So like, here's 2 minutes to just continue to just move your
Okay, I don't know if that is my connection or if.
Am I still connected?
Yes, I just heard you say that, but you kind of froze there when you were talking about using the 3D pen to express your feelings. And
so a student drew himself in a cage.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
He said, and I feel caged in. So he was like, having this community within this space allows me an ability to connect with my brothers because we're not able to gather in large groups. So, it was a real good experience to be able to see that students were struggling, but they were willing to overcome different aspects of that. And this platform allowed them to do that. And same thing went for faculty sharing their own stories in that space. And it was a safe space for them to do it. So I think it's really a powerful tool for not just strict academics and learning within your discipline, but also how can we connect with one another?
Absolutely. And, while we collectively were sort of forced into Zoom as a way to deliver education during the pandemic, it also opened up sort of the door to this kind of possibility, which is a much richer, a much deeper, more holistic way of conducting education remotely. And also contains many other possibilities because of the affordances there. Yeah. Now, my involvement with the Metaversity project has been as an advisor to Southwestern Oregon Community College, which is one of the institutions that came on board a little later and had their digital twin campus built, and have just in the past week and a half launched their first VR classes on their Metaversity campus. There is a Speech 101 class. Wonderful. There is forestry, and there is microeconomics. And we're super excited about that. But this part of my involvement there has been guiding them through some of the logistical challenges of running a Metaversity. And I know you know a great deal about that, Dr. Morris. Let's talk a little bit about those challenges and opportunities.
So the challenges are vast, but the joy is greater than the challenges. Honestly, onboarding over 200 to 300 students, faculty and staff in headsets is a huge responsibility, but it is the best thing that I think I do. So I had to learn how to manage our devices, because we are a college, right? So we loan out the headsets at the beginning of the semester, and students, they have complete authority over their headset until they return it. And they do have the opportunity to buy it if they want to, but then I, repurchase and refill it. But I realized that, it was easier when it was just 3 classes, right? The logistics of mailing out just those and bringing them back, piece of cake. Now we're on campus. Everybody's on campus. I'm not dealing with individual people's Wi-Fi. I'm dealing with Morehouse's network. And so connectivity has been one of our challenges and opportunities. So before I didn't really have to work much with IT or deal with connection issues. Now we are really exploring other ways to connect. So I'm working with T-Mobile and doing a small proof of concept of how our hotspots provide better network coverage so that we're not stressing our own bandwidth at our actual institution, because this is like 300 more devices on our network, right? Also dealing with just loaning out and keeping up with headsets. So I have a team of student ambassadors who are now helping me. So young men that are technologically sound and savvy, have worked in media and production before, and just have a knack for wanting to not just help, reset them, make sure that they're all good and charged up and all those kind of things for the next person, but also to record the process. So like before I was like a one-stop shop, but now I have people to kind of help me as we document the workflow and the process so that it'll be easier for other people as they're onboarding. So I've always said we are the blueprint. And while we were building the rocket while it was going to space, I don't want anyone else to really have to do that, right? So I'm trying to pioneer this path and leave an opening so wide that others can just easily walk through that door and do the things that they need to do. So it's a really special time right now. And one of the things that people always ask me about is, does this violate any FERPA laws? Mm-hmm. So we are federally mandated to be protective of student grades and how they're assessed and their data. And one of the best things about this project this year is that there's no reason for you to connect through your Facebook accounts. You have the choice of connecting through your Facebook account or your Instagram account if you would like, or creating a totally separate autonomous account, meta account of your own. And so that has given a lot of people a lot of peace of mind. It's also broken down barriers to K-12. So I'm also now in the education department and training pre-service teachers and in-service teachers, doing some professional development. And it's good to be able to talk to K-12 educators, and they don't have the barriers of trying to get around their firewalls anymore when it comes to having to access the Oculus on the through Facebook accounts, because that was a huge challenge. So now they have the opportunity to experience some of what we're doing as well. So it's trickling down into K-12, and as we provide best practices and things like that, they're able to more easily implement these type of things within their structure, because it's really going to take a gargantuan effort at the college level of us kind of like providing the pathway and the guidelines to then shuttle it through to K-12. So I'm really excited about those guidelines being loosened. And because we work with college, I don't really, obviously there's a morality clause, just most schools have them, right? Like an ethical clause that you sign about, the way that you will behave. And it's no different in this metaverse space. So everything that they're held to as a Morehouse student, they're also goes the same in the metaverse, including dress, so like how you show up in the space, because in Engage, we have hyper-realistic avatars. Mm-hmm. And so our students create themselves after their own likeness. So a lot of them do the face-enabled avatar so that we'll be able to recognize our students. But how you present yourself is a big part of the Morehouse experience as well. So students do come quite snazzy to class and ready to learn and present themselves as professionals in that space, just as they do on campus.
Right, and you've touched on so many things there, such as the policies that are involved around this. So you suggested that the policies that were already in place regarding student conduct and behavior, applied in the metaverse. But this is something that an institution needs to think about and needs to examine their policies and see whether they would stretch to cover that instance. Also, with regard to the device management, Southwestern Oregon Community College decided to use a multiple device management system to help them manage the content and the updating and tracking of the headsets to help ease that process. And then there are also things to think about, like which department is responsible for the distribution of the headsets? Is it the bookstore? Is it the library? Thinking about these allocations of duties. So there are so many of these kinds of decisions that need to be considered. This is truly a disruptor in higher education. And, my hope is that it will lead to many good things, including some of those of breaking down the disciplinary silos. I have a great respect for disciplinary knowledge and for the academic rigor that comes along with that. But, we are holistic human beings, and the ways that we work and we present ourselves and that we accomplish things in the world requires collaboration and bringing together different kinds of knowledge. And I think that education in the metaverse really opens up the possibilities for exploration of that. Now, and Dr. Morris, you had mentioned some of your studies that you had conducted, and I think it's really important to start to collect this kind of data about education in the metaverse. People are asking for that. They ask for it all the time. And so what are the sort of things that need to be considered? Where do you start? Looking at maybe previous data that you had and building on that, how do you sort of start to create the right kind of research program to collect that data and be able to make sense of it?
Okay, so you said a few things, and I'm going to go back and then go forward.
Okay.
So where is this house? So I am the Metaversity Director of Morehouse in the Metaverse. So I am the principal investigator of all virtual reality grant funding that is at Morehouse College, and as it pertains to our Morehouse in the Metaverse project. So everything that we do in terms of our Metaversity project, including academics or any kind of special events or experiences, falls under my purview.
Right.
So I am a professor. I'm in the Department of Education, and that allows me the vantage point and that wide berth that we need to do the research that is necessary to look at outcomes and tether it to other disciplines. So while I loved being in chemistry, I'm also K-12 certified and have been an educator and trained to be an educator in the state of Georgia since 2009. And so I also, as a part of my research when I was working on my dissertation at Emory, was that I went into K-12 classrooms and created different types of problem-based learning experiences tethered to the standards. And I've taught in our Upward Bound Math Science as their science research coordinator lead. So I have a lot of experience pooling this type of data together and utilizing it to best train other educators to do more with programming. So I have the background to be able to run this program, and I went to business school and worked on project management. So I am able to manage so much of this project because I have already had the tools to be able to do so, right? So I see this very differently than just a particular subject matter expert would, because I have meshed together not just my science experience, but education and business and also intellectual property. So we talked about even protecting IP and what we wanted that to look like as academic professionals. And so the data that you see is the data that we have already published in peer-reviewed proceedings or documents. And so I have given my faculty members room within their own disciplines to publish the data that they need to continue to progress them as professionals. So when I say that opportunistic reality piece, that is allowing our academic professors within the Metaversity project to create their own scholarship window and do their research so that their disciplines have the knowledge that they need to know how this can be utilized. And then we are working on some broader papers and books and white papers about just what this all means. So within the next year, you'll see more publications from Morehouse College coming out, because we are now working on it, because we've done a lot of the doing, and now we're doing a lot of the processing of it and making sure that we're abiding by standards in our discipline and things like that. So you will see new data coming out. In terms of how other institutions would like to do it, I do say that there needs to, like me, be a principal investigator that is over it, that has full support of academic affairs. I do have that support. So this project was initially started by our former provost, Dr. Michael Hodge, who is now the executive director of the Atlanta University Center Consortium. And he really spearheaded the innovation of me and the other three professors as we started. And so he put people on this particular project that he saw already innovating in their spaces. And one of the things that we also did was, when Dr. Clark's class didn't make until the fall, even though she came on in the spring of 2021, we did do the cross-disciplinary lessons. So you were talking about breaking down those interdisciplinary silos by doing interdisciplinary work. And we were able to use The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, which was a text, and she teaches, African-American literature, as a common text between my advanced in organic chemistry course, which we taught metals in medicine. So we talked about the experience of her as a Black woman in the 1950s being treated with radium for cancer, and how that treatment did not work. And the students had to use their own scientific background to understand how those metals were evolving into better cancer therapeutics using her HeLa cells that her family had no idea about. So it talks about health disparities and medical ethics, as well as the science behind it and those commonalities. We did the same thing in biology, the men's health class, with Dr. Clark as well. And so students have been making connections across discipline. We did it in general chemistry and sociology in our social problems. So having students look at the molecular world and then see how that also changes their perspective in terms of food inequality. Or we talked about transgender and hormones and hormone therapies. We also talked about COVID, obviously, and vaccinations, and that in terms of the experience of all people globally, right? So what's the human connection there, and how does, lack of access to knowledge and care in certain things cause bigger problems that we have to solve? So we've done this across many different disciplines and linked our courses together, where we've had cohorts of students actually matriculate through and have both teachers, which has provided a really different dynamic than they've had before. The final thing that you talked about was, I think you said who houses the data, like the data just within itself.
I'm not sure I said that about the data, but sort of like how do you conceptualize collecting it? What is different about collecting this data in this sort of environment and this context? It requires a stretch, right? It's not the way we've always done things.
No, it's not, and it's interesting because there's a big push of data science in our Atlanta University Center Consortium. So not only are we trying to leverage that, that we have students that are data science fellows, to look at ways in which we correlate this data to determine student experience, user experience. Do we need to design different interfaces? I know we have already kind of collected some things about just what does it mean to have culturally appropriate avatars and how you actually show up in this space. So all of those things we're working on, but yes, it totally changes the way that we look at data and what it really means for us. And then how to really protect our own student privacy and their own experiences. And so that is another thing that we're teasing out and working through, because it is quite different.
Mhm, mhm. Yes, yes. And, you know, the research that you and your colleagues are doing is so incredibly valuable to the others who come behind and are going to need that peer-reviewed research in order to make a case for education in the metaverse in itself, but also to do it right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's, you know, you're really doing a huge service to the community there, but also feeding back into industry, into the XR industry. Because there are things like having the culturally responsive avatars or culturally appropriate avatars. You know, that's something that needs to be the case across the board in all of these platforms, and many other things too. So the work that you're doing informs academia and the adoption of new technologies for successful, effective teaching, K through 12 as well, but also the technology companies themselves and the ways that they are creating their platforms and services. And
Correct.
That is enormously important.
I think one of the things that no one really thinks about is that culturally appropriate avatar creation piece, and not just for Black Americans. Like for me, it's not as important. I mean, it's important for me to be represented in that space. I could do a face-enabled avatar, but there are other nationalities and ethnicities that are just not represented in the catalogs that are available, and that creates that larger digital divide where you just feel like you don't belong here, and so you don't build here. But in order for the metaverse to be equitable and all voices to be heard, we have to have everyone feel like they belong in that space. So making sure that my friends that are of, you know, Asian descent are able to see themselves in that space, that when they take a selfie, that it's them that they see, and not just some random person that might just have a piece of their hairstyle, right? Like hair textures, just many different things, you know, need to show up in that space, but that's not going to happen unless we have everyone present. So I'm willing to stick through the hard part of not necessarily being represented the way that I want to, in order to have my voice heard, so that people understand that it is important. Some people choose not to. I had a colleague that chose to bow out of it specifically because she didn't feel represented in the space. She has come back to write that white paper and to do the research now, but it was because I gave her a charge of, if we don't speak up about the things that are needed, then no one's going to know, right? So you have to stay through some of the more challenging parts of it. So like I tell new professors that are coming in, even, I know that it's not easy, and you're doing a whole lot. You're teaching multiple classes, you're teaching different preps, and now you're charged with creating content in this space. But think about how necessary it is for our young people to be technologically savvy across all disciplines now. Our baby boomers are leaving the workplace, and for us to be able to fill those positions, we have to be a little bit more technologically savvy. And even if you are a political science major or you are an English major, you're still going to need technology and technological tools to be able to make the work easier, because we don't have the actual manpower anymore to do the same type of work. And then for people who need to be skilled in different jobs that do require dexterity and skill at the bench or in the actual field, students need that real-time experience. So you can't just throw theory out there and then expect them to apply it on their own anymore, because we need people moving directly from education into a skilled position immediately. So all of those reasons are reasons to adopt these types of technologies now.
Yes, completely. We're in we're facing interesting times now, and the world is changing very rapidly, and we are facing new challenges, and the reduction in the workforce, and also for higher education, the enrollment cliff that we're facing because of demographic changes. And so thinking about ways for higher education and academia to remain relevant and to engage with the students where they are, but also to think beyond just the traditional student, and to think about making sure to develop people of all ages and all abilities in order to have them contribute their best and their most to society. And so I think that I view this as a positive time. Yes, we have a lot of challenges to face and things that we need to be cognizant of, but I do think that the opportunities are enormous.
They are. And I say to everyone, if you really want to know what joy feels like, it's about being on the precipice of something that is so foundational to what we are going to be in the future, where you can touch humanity in a way that is going to make a change, that you can provide transformational learning experiences to students and have them see themselves as capable and able and well suited to do the job that lies ahead of them. That to me is joy, and has restored my hope in the educational system. Mm-hmm. Students were thrust into these Zoom rooms and different technological tools, and it kind of put them off, right? And we've got to engage them and let them know that there is hope and joy, and it's not just you sitting in front of a screen all day, but that you can engage and be captivated by experiences that you never thought you could have, right? And it's not geographically like, okay, I live here and I can't sit outside of the Eiffel Tower and study. You can now, you know what I mean? And so we've got to make sure that this trickles down to everyone, that all young students, regardless of socioeconomics, have access to this type of technology and experiences, because it's going to make us a greater society. So, like you said, the opportunities are vast. And so that's why I call it opportunistic reality, because it changed. It really, like when I sat down and thought about it, it changed the trajectory of my own life. And it gives me hope again that, I am supposed to do something greater. And, and it's done that for all my professors, and it's done that for my students, and it's done that for our community, and it's done that for, all of what I am starting to see other educators as they continue to explore. And I think the most telling thing was when my students heard me giggle for the first time in virtual reality. And they were like, "Are you giggling, Dr. Morris?" And it was like, they're so used to professors and teachers being so serious and so kind of standoffish that it opened a window for me to be able to relate and connect with my students, because they saw me playing. And that was a beautiful experience. So I urge everyone to, go forward in this thing with me. Like, come over to the joyous side of play and curiosity and discovery, and be renewed, because humanity can't wait for us to utilize and leverage your genius, because our young people really need it. So,
wow, what a beautiful note on which to end.
Right? That's just inspirational. We've been talking about so many different things around education, but to bring in such a deeply connective human element of that is so important. And it's really important and enlivening to hear that, what is happening within the education system around the metaverse and VR and AR has these abilities to help people that are in confined situations, or situations where their physical environments are not necessarily the greatness of their minds and their imaginations, but that they have these tools now that are starting to open up within Web3, within, you know, these different communities that we have here, that are going to allow them to be able to engage at those levels again, which I bet you've seen just like the eyes opening and the minds like cracking open. I can only just imagine it, because you've been doing such an amazing amount of work across the spectrum, you know, producing research, doing case studies, assisting with the actual technological components of it. Just a vast world of understanding that you've already been accumulating and helping others for. So thank you so much for being here and sharing this with everyone. Yeah, I'm excited to be able to post this and get this out to more people, because every little bit helps, right? And your connection, and talking about that human connection in depth is really important. So I might actually put that at the beginning of the segment too.
No problem. So one of the things that I always say, and I'm real Southern, you all. I'm in Georgia, and I grew up here. But like we say in the old churches, like I say that we're gonna evangelize the metaverse and education from the womb to the tomb. So part of what I'm trying to do is help all people, like our youngest young and our oldest old, really find where they belong. And I don't mind sharing and helping them figure that out, right? Because it's going to take all of us, and that's so important. So if people want to find me, unitethemetaverse.com. Just look me up there.
Yes. And, you know, Dr. Morris, you were just so generous in sharing your knowledge and what you learned in your journey. You know, I encourage everyone here to follow Dr. Morris and her endeavors on LinkedIn or wherever you find her. You will learn a great deal from her. And I would like to take just this moment to give a little shout out to XRSI, the XR Safety Initiative. We talked about issues of privacy before, and also about things like the digital divide and the fact that we need to make sure that everyone, you know, we're here in the U.S., that everyone in this country at least and beyond has access to the connectivity they need to use these technologies, and that there are policies around those that govern them so that they are properly enacted. And the XRSI is doing a wonderful job in that regard. They've worked with the government of Australia. So please check them out. The XR Safety Initiative, headed up by Kavya Perlman. They're an important organization and could use, you know, your support.
Yeah, that is true. And if you just want a community to like be a part of, because you're not really sure to, Gatherverse is a very great community to be a part of. And they talk about that humanity first approach to the metaverse. So Christopher Lafayette is over that, and they have built a huge community where they're going from continent to continent, just talking about the human aspect of what the metaverse.org is, how you find that community. And perhaps you can find just like a group of like-minded individuals and just learn a little bit about what's being done too.
This has been so fascinating, and I can't, like I said, put this up, because thank you for these opportunities for people to reach out and find further information. We are closing out this hour, and thank you again to Dr. Alexander and Dr. Morris so much for being here. And we're going to put up just a quick roll of all of the different partners and a video for the conference. And then we're immediately heading into legalities around Web3 and things that we can know about and maybe understand what's being taught, what's being brought into curriculums, what's the current on, you know, people's radars about, you know, regulations, all of these kind of things coming up very shortly after this video. But thank you again for the education in the metaverse. And we'll see you in the metaverse.
Yes.
We'll see you there. Thank you so much.
many things to look forward to in 2023 with our community. The first is the Web3C DAO and applications which will be open in early spring of 2023 to help govern the future events and products that we offer our community. The next is the Academic Web3 Conference in May of 2023, bringing the heads of tech and Web3 together with the whole academic ecosystem, administrators, students, professors, to find new ways